You're watching Honoring the Armor podcast, hosted by Coach Nikki M.
Friends and family, thank you for joining us for an exciting, enriching, and truly wholehearted episode of Honoring the Armor, the podcast that is for everybody, mothers, fathers, daughters, sons, and everybody in between. Today, my special guest is Miss Dion. She has come to talk about her mothering journey, to talk about her experience as a mother, to talk about her experience of her mother and everybody in between. So I just want to thank her so much for being here with us and being a part of this journey. Thank you again for coming.
I thank you for the invite. I'm so excited to be able to, for one, congratulate you on this passion project.
Yes.
We have spoken about it a few times, and I'm just excited and honored to be here and to be invited to share my story and just to help anyone that I could possibly help.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I really believe that, story sharing and storytelling is so important. And I always talk about being a good steward of your story and a good steward of other people's stories. And at the same time, really doing, I guess, anything you could do, anything I can do to help people know and see that they are not alone, right? And that some of the things that they think they're the only ones thinking or the only ones feeling, they are not. So that actually leads me into maybe asking you to share a little bit with myself and with our friends and family out there about why you believe that this is like an important conversation to have either for yourself or for other people.
As a mother, it's definitely important because we don't get to share a lot because we have to wear the armor. We have to protect. We have to serve. We are almost the in-house police, so to speak. We are the judge. We are the jury. And so it is one of those subjects that is not covered a lot because we as mothers, we have to not only protect our children, we not only have to protect ourselves, we have to also protect our own mothers because, they are the ones who reared us and taught us how to rear our own. And unfortunately, oftentimes, because of this subject, they do wear the armor that we are not aware of until we start to feel the weight of our own armor. So this subject is of the utmost importance because it will shine a light not only on mothers who have biological children, but mothers who are, stepmothers, mothers who are the bonus moms, mothers who are mothers in love, meaning that they didn't bear their own children, but they still love children the same as if they were their own. Godmothers. It is very important for all of us who are in that space to understand what our armor is, where it came from, and what it means, and how can we observe it and honor it.
God, you said so much for me to unpack there. I feel like I want to start in the reverse a little bit because I'm in those categories, right? So I am someone who did not bear my own children, but I have 4 godchildren. And for me, I think I am in such an enviable position because I don't feel that weight of having to wear armor for them. I don't have a fear of being judged by them. I don't have a fear of telling them the mistakes I've made and being like imperfect and messy in front of them. I know I was, I can't remember where my oldest godson and I were coming from. But I made the mistake of letting him sit in the front. Won't do that again. he was like, Miss Nikki, Miss Nikki. And so he can read everything on the screen, right? And so I may or may not have been over the speed limit. You will never know. So we are in the car, and he's like, Miss Nikki, Miss Nikki. Every time it turned red, you know, because maybe I was speeding, maybe I was not. I could have been like 1 mile over, but he was on top of it. Miss Nikki, Miss Nikki. So I know that is like such an enviable position as opposed to the mother that actually did give birth to them. And so let's talk, because I know you have a very, very close relationship with the godmother of your children. Talk to me about that difference, that we really do get to be in that position of not withholding ourselves from them because we don't fear judgment.
But you did in a way.
You think?
When you were not speeding.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because he was cognizant of the speed limit and you were going over. And so every time he would ping you, you would go slow down.
I would.
So unconsciously, but consciously, you were being judged and you did not want him to judge you, even though you aren't his birth mother, you are his godmother. And as someone who is a mothering figure and an adult in his life, you know, you don't want him to pick up a bad habit, so to speak, right?
And I don't want him to tell on me.
And you know, snitches get stitches.
Right.
So, but as far as a godmother is concerned with the judgment, she doesn't bear the heavy judgment. Because in your case, like I said, with the not speeding, he was in a sense holding you accountable, right? And so children will hold everyone accountable. They will hold a stranger accountable.
For sure.
So as the godmother, you know, because you do have that close personal relationship, I like to say like a mother once removed type of situation, they're correcting you is, you know, in a way, a judgment that you don't want to, you know, so you put on that armor of, okay, I have to not do this in front of the child because I don't want my wrongs to be judged in a sense, right? So with the godmother of my children, we're two peas in a pod. Like, she has children and I have children. So, you know, we have a same mind concept of, you know, a child stays in a child's place. However, we also understand that children are human and they have to explore and they have feelings. And so we have to honor them and their space of childrenhood. So when it comes to her, like my daughter, my youngest daughter, she'll go to her godmother and she's like, "God, mommy, blah, 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 and mom, and blah, 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 blah." And my sister, you know, my sister, my godmother, my daughter's godmother, she'll call me and she was like, "Girl, why my godchild call me and tell me that you said this or you did this?" And I'm like, "But," and she will get on me, right? So it's one of those things where
So you get the double judgment.
Exactly. So it's one of those things where as a godmother, you don't have the direct judgment.
For sure.
But you do have the indirect judgment.
Okay. I'm going to think about that. And since we're working backward, you also talked about there's like all of this intersectionality between the armor that you may be wearing as a mother and then the armor that your mother wore, right? Talk to us a little bit about your experience of your mother, and whether or not there was a connection to who she was, like as a person and as a woman when you were growing up.
Unfortunately, no. So I did not and still do not have a good relationship, or a relationship, so to speak, with my mother. And as I've grown and matured, and therapy and, you know, just exploration of who I am and where I came from, what I've learned over the years, and also just like, family gatherings from when I was younger, and the family, her sisters and brothers would talk about like what they did in their childhood and how their parents like reared them and disciplined them. And you put all those pieces together, and then you realize like this is why she is who she is. And this is why she had that chink in her armor, or why her armor is so dented in that one space that it's cutting into her skin. And unfortunately, generations, certain generations still don't believe in like therapy or looking back at what is the causation of my reaction or my behavior or whatnot. So, and she's part of one of those individuals who don't believe in looking back. Like, it's just like, this is just who I am, and I'm going to be who I am, and you can't change it, and I'm grown. And, it's like one of those things where it's unfortunate. So I say all that to say, I am I'm assuming that my mother's armor was chinked and damaged because of how she was raised by her parents. I won't go too far into it because obviously it's her story to tell, but I will say that it was not the best. There were a lot of children in the home. I believe they had 9 or 10 children. She was the oldest girl. I'm the oldest girl. And it's one of those things where she did the best she could with what she had.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's everybody's story. You don't know what you don't know. And what I've learned about her armor is that she had to do her best to survive in the pact that she was raised in. And because of that, I did not receive a lot of mothering, a lot of love, a lot of support, a lot of comfort. The dictionary version of definition of what a mother is supposed to do for her children. I did not receive any of that. And that's because I don't believe she did as the oldest girl.
Right.
Out of, 8 or 9 kids, if you're the oldest girl, you are also a mother. You don't have time to be a child. And your parents are, parenting these other little ones around you. So you are oft forgotten.
Yeah.
And so that built her armor. I'm not important, or I'm not, I wasn't worth the attention or what have you. And so it goes to the next generation, which is me. And, it was just 2 of us, me and my sister, my youngest sister. And, so it should have been enough love to go around just for the 2 of us. And it was 3 years stint or, space between my sister and I. So, as an only child, so to speak, for 3 years, you would have thought. But because she did not receive it herself, she wasn't able to do it.
I've heard that. I feel like that is a story that is not uncommon. And I have often been given the phrase, people can't give you what they don't have to give, right? And so it sounds like through storytelling, through the stories that you have heard from her siblings, you came to understand what maybe her story, I guess I'll say, of growing up was like, right? And maybe a lot of the things that she was missing and didn't get. And so those are things that she didn't develop and couldn't pour into you. Is that kind of fair to say?
Very accurate.
How old were you? If you have a memory of feeling that urge to, or even the realization that your mother was a woman and a person in her own right. Because I remember for me, I didn't realize growing up that my mother was like a person. I thought she was my mother. And I was really, really like in my late 30s when I had the epiphany that she was a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was a woman, but a different woman,
Mm-hmm.
a woman that I didn't know. But I wanted to know her, right? And so I think that urge and that awareness didn't come for me until like my late 20s. When do you remember, if you have a memory of that coming for you?
Probably in my late 20s, early 30s, when I realized that she was an actual human.
Yeah.
You know, again, it's a judgment thing. Like, you didn't love me enough. You didn't give me this. You didn't give me that. I'm looking through the lens of a child,
Yes.
you know? And once you become a fully functioning human after the age of 26, not 25, 26,
26.
you start to think of things logically.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was probably, like I said, late 20s, early 30s when I was just like, that old saying is like, she couldn't give me what she never had. So why am I holding her, you know, against the cross when she couldn't do anything? She did the best that she could with what she had, you know, and that's when my journey started.
Yeah. And I think it's so different. And you and I have talked about this a little bit from how you view that void. So whatever you weren't getting, you know, how you view it at 16 and 20 is so different from the lens that you have at 27 and 30. Because one thing that kids do not have is like grace. Okay. So we really do have this like demand on them when we are children because we're immature and we're looking at the world through a child's eyes. We know nothing about what it takes to survive, definitely not what it takes to thrive, right? And so we're like, you didn't, and you don't, and you know, and you didn't, and look at you, and you know, because you're a little teenager, a little simple-minded. And then when you have some life experience, some information, there is such grace that you're able to, I think, show them, and that having that understanding that they couldn't give me what they didn't have to give. I think there's a lot of just like beauty in that, and it releases not just them, but it releases you. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Whew. So the grace. So what I found is in order for me to give myself grace, I have to give grace to others. And so, and if I'm expecting grace, then I have to also, you know, give grace. And when it came to giving grace to my mother, it was, I mean, at this point, I had 5 kids at that point. And I think that's what it was, where my older children were in that teenage stage where it's just like, you never gave me, you weren't there, you know, this, that, and the other. And it was just like the daggers here, there, you know, could not dodge a bullet to save my life. And I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Like, I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to do. At least I thought. And it's, you know, it's like, why do I not know how to do this? How do I do this? Like, I thought, you know, if I did the complete opposite of what my mother did, then I would be so much better. Only to find out that no, you will never be better. You will never do the right things according to your children, no matter how perfect you are. And so it was that moment where I could not like break the surface of the water. I was just drowning in judgments from my children, where I was just like, this is what it felt like for her with me. And even though I wasn't as vocal as my children were, because, you know, again, it's a generation thing where it's just like, you better not. In my head, I'm just like, you you just and you didn't and just and and why weren't you and I'm just like, wow. Like I just need to step back and realize that I need to one check myself as a child and as a mother to realize that she did what she had to do and what she could do. And so the only thing that you should do as her child at this stage is just forgive her and grant her grace, because that's going to make your journey into this continuous motherhood journey not seamless, not easy, but palatable. Palatable?
You're like palatable.
Palatable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You've shared, I think, the why behind the armor that your mom wore. And it does certainly sound like having an understanding of that why has really been helpful to you in applying grace and really, again, releasing not just her, but releasing yourself, right? And so, you know, we've gotten the personal aspect about your mom's armor, but in general, why do you think that we find that parents, particularly mothers, wear that armor, and why do they, you know, maybe come off that they're withholding aspects of themselves? Why do you think that happens in general?
Because they don't want to be seen as imperfect. They don't want that judgment. They don't want to seem weak. They don't want to seem too strong, right? They don't want to seem too mean. They don't want to seem too nice. So all of those don't want but want to turn into that armor of protection for them. And, you know, it's one of those things where we have to help them as not as children, as adult children, I'll say.
Yeah.
As adult children, because as little children, we're just like, mommy, mommy, mommy. But as adult children, we have to come back to the well and help them shine their armor, right? Like take care of their armor. Help them buff out that scratch or that chink and say, how did you get this?
Yeah.
And start to like help them to understand that we understand and we're not judging you for your missteps, you know, because if that never happens, then they'll always be wearing that armor and be weighed down.
I love that. I love that. They will always be wearing that armor and be weighed down. I love that. Let's talk about some societal and cultural factors, because I think that comes into play. Because when I hear you talk about, and I love that you said this, hey, like, where'd you get that? What came to my mind was, who told you that you needed that armor?
Exactly.
Who told you that you had to withhold aspects of yourself? Like who told you this? And so I think that there are some societal and cultural factors there. Let's talk a little bit more about that.
I think it comes from the fact that the mother is the one who is rearing the children from birth until they go to school. And if you have the wherewithal that you can stay home until the child goes to kindergarten, right? They're in school full time, all day, or at least first grade. And so whatever mistake that we make, we have to hide it. And that's where that piece of armor comes on. Oh, I burnt the steak. Let's not let him know before he comes home.
But where does it come from? How do we know that we have to hide it? Where is that reinforcement coming from? I do think the message starts it could start in the home. It
Mm-hmm.
could start, but there are, I think, places in society where mothers learn that. I almost feel like they learn it first from other mothers.
Yeah, it's definitely from other mothers. It's definitely from other mothers. I mean, yeah, you know what? It's definitely from other mothers because, I mean, we know in the Black community, we're just going to keep it straight. In the Black community,
We go right to the cultural factors.
Right to the cultural factors. We know that, Big Mama and Daddy-O, right? We're
Daddy-O.
married. We're married. And then they weren't.
Yeah.
But we also know that Big Mama didn't have to work. She did not work outside the home, but her bills were always paid. That's because Daddy-O would drop that envelope off. We also know that if Daddy-O did not move out of the home and he beat Big Mama wasn't leaving. Why? Because Big Mama's mama told her, as long as that man is paying those bills, you keep him. That's a good man. He works hard. He works hard. He gets frustrated. If he's out cheating, as long as he ain't bringing nothing back to you, he ain't bringing no babies back to you, that's a good man. He works hard. He gets frustrated. Maybe you're not doing something that you should be doing. Like what's missing? And that's where that shield comes in, the defense of, oh my God, what am I not doing?
So you just learn from what you're saying that you gotta hide a bunch of stuff.
You have to hide a bunch of stuff. My man cheating on me. Don't want them to know about that. Oh, my man beat me. Let me just put on a little bit more concealer. Yeah, it's a lot.
We're gonna shift, y'all. She's making me sad. Tell me about where you know yourself to be in your relationship with your children. Do you find that you show up armored, or do you find that you show up like open?
That's a 2-part question. So the first part is in the beginning with my first 3. Yes.
Okay.
I was a teenage mother. So that was a damning. That was like the scarlet letter, right? So that was something that I did not, well, obviously they would know, but I did not want them to know any other missteps outside of that. So I wore armor with them. They didn't know anything else about me except I was your mother. You did what I said, when I said it, how I said it, and there was no bite back. There was nothing. With my younger 2, though, because I had them later in life, like in my late 20s, early 30s, again, that fully functioning human. And also realizing with the older 3, like the weight of the judgment from them and the missteps that I was hiding and this, that, and the other, it starts to weigh on you. Like when you do hide a piece of yourself, it doesn't matter from who, it starts to weigh on you. And it's just like, oh my God, like what is going, like, what am I doing? Right. And so with my younger 2, after therapy and going to school and, learning psychology and this, that, and the other, and how, people view you view yourself, I started to shift my thinking of, no, I'm not your little friend, but I'm still your friend.
Okay. Oh, I was scared. I was like, ooh.
Right? So it's just like, I am going to tell you the unadulterated truth about me and my experience with a little sugar. Like, I'm not going to give it to you Eddie Murphy raw, but I'm still going to give it to you like in the Kevin Hart way.
Okay. That's a good analogy.
So that you still get the point.
Yeah.
Of, yes, I misstepped. However, this is what I did. This is what I did to not do it again. Yes, you did this. However, in my experience, because I did do that, this is how I handled it with my younger 2. With my older 3, unfortunately, I don't have a relationship with my oldest daughter. And with my 2 older boys, it's shaky because of the armor that I wore with them. And, although I have started to take the armor off with them, whenever I did speak, whenever I do speak to them, just to review, like, I am human. This is who I am. I'm not just your mother. I did make mistakes. I know I made mistakes. Um, it's still shaky because, again, the armor, can be the most comforting and the most damaging part of a mother. It really, really can. It's damaging because of you don't reveal your true self to those that you should reveal yourself to. So then, when you start to, like, oh, hey, wait a minute, here I am, they're like, it's too late now because, the damage is done.
Yeah, because I think that, and that's so, I think, first of all, courageous that you have not only recognized that, but taken steps to redirect and to correct, right? And to really, like, enrich and strengthen. Because I think what happens is, as much as it can feel good to, like, hide pieces of yourself and withhold aspects of yourself, it also is continuously breeding disconnection. So whenever, whether it's a parent-child relationship or a romantic relationship or a friendship, whenever you are inauthentic, you are just continuously sowing seeds of disconnection. And there's no easier everyday way to be disconnected from people than living inauthentically, right?
Amen.
And so that also breeds, like, distrust. And so those older three, it may feel, I'm not speaking for them, that, like, oh, like, now here she is saying she's this or showing up that, but I'm not sure because, well, she was saying this before and showing up that before, right? Yep. And so then there's, like, that, I don't feel like I'm on solid ground, right?
Yep.
There's that distrust thing. So I think every day, like, is an opportunity, right, for us to be more authentic and to trust more and to connect more. And it sounds to me like something either happened or clicked in you that said, I need to do this differently, right? This is how I raised my older three. This is what I thought, I need to do this differently. What was the turning point for you?
It was actually with my oldest daughter. She turned 17, and for whatever reason, I don't know, something imploded in her. And I mean, she was not a problem child at all. Like, she didn't go through the nasty 13s, preteens, this, that, and the other. It was just like, I was smooth riding, right? Great student, just flourishing in school. And then she turned 17 and something happened. I don't know what it was. And still to this day, I don't know what it was. So I'm hoping one day that I will be able to find out what it was. But as of right now, it's still a mystery to me. But for whatever reason, she turned 17, and then it just became combative between us. And she moved out at 17. She graduated, so she moved out at 17. And I vowed to myself, like, internally, like, I don't know what happened, but I don't want this to happen with the remaining 4. And so I was diligent, like, to, like, let up the reins of whatever I was doing. Like, I literally did a 180 from my parenting. And it helped a lot. And I think that's why with my older boys, we have a better relationship, like a better, closer relationship rather, because I did let up the reins. And so I was showing pieces of myself. And as they started going through the rest of their high school years and, getting into trouble and this, that, and the other, I would reflect on, and I would bring them into the conversation and reflect on, like, well, listen, I have a cousin this age who used to, and did it, you know what I mean? And
Right.
so, and, when I was in school and, whatever. So I would give them examples as opposed to don't do that because, you a little black boy and, you
Right.
could go to jail. Like I went away from that
Mhm.
and brought in like the personal stories so I could
Yes.
connect with them.
There it is.
It was literally that's what it was. It was a discourse between my oldest daughter, and then that became the pivotal point for me to like, this is not working. Apparently it's not working.
Right. I need to pivot.
I need to pivot.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Knowing, just understanding the complexities, right, of motherhood. And I think they're, countless, right? But, we've talked about just some of the typical reasons why mothers tend to wear armor and withhold aspects of themselves. We certainly have talked about some cultural factors, right? And so understanding that just against the backdrop of just the general complexity of motherhood, what do you hope moving forward in society? Like, what would you hope to be different for the motherhood journey?
Oof. I hope that the motherhood journey turns from the desire um, to the purpose for. We desire to be different from our mothers. We desire to be better than the mother down the street. We desire to provide, more and bigger than the other parents or mothers. Instead of finding the purpose for our teaching this teaching moment for our child, the purpose of leaning into a certain, I don't know, aspect of whatever it is, right? Instead of the purpose for, the purpose to, we need to find the purpose of our being.
Wow.
As opposed to the desire of, or the desire to.
Yeah.
Because the desire is what we want, and the purpose is what we are, who we are.
I love that.
So we need to find the purpose. I want every mother or future mother or mother, godmother, what have you, mother in love, to find your purpose, not your desire, but your purpose for motherhood and your mothering style, your mothering journey. What is your purpose?
That's deep. I feel like desire, as you've described it, desire versus purpose. I feel like desire is like dropping a pebble on a sidewalk, and desire is like dropping it in a pond, and then there are ripples, right? And desire is really about what's lasting, and I'm not desire, I'm sorry, purpose is about what's lasting and what is like feeding and oh yeah, that's good. That's good. I'm gonna remember that. I'm gonna have to start talking about things like, not these are my desires, but like this is the purpose.
This is the purpose.
The purpose. Let's do some rapid reflections.
All right.
I'm going to ask you to finish these sentences in about 3 to 5 words.
Okay.
The mother that I used to be thought.
Children.
Like I'm counting my words.
Children were seen and not heard.
Oh, I grew up like that.
Mm-hmm.
You mean that's not true?
That's
what I
not
was
true.
Wow. Okay. The mother that I am now knows.
Your biggest lessons come from your children.
Oh, that's good. Oh, that's good. Okay. The woman that I used to be thought.
Oof. 100 words. The woman I used to be thought that I did not have a purpose.
Mm-hmm. So the woman that I am now knows.
The woman that I am now knows that I am resilient and have a purpose. And I know this is more than 5. And
it's okay.
And is strong.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Remember, mother is another word for. Oof. You cannot say love.
No, you know what? I was just like, it's love. And
no,
it's love,
you can't say
it's
that.
caring and it's nurturing. Absolutely not. Mother is, there's another word for resilience. Mm-hmm. Resilience. Mm-hmm. Because you cannot go on this journey and not be resilient.
What would you offer anybody watching or listening who identifies with that armor, who is a mother, and they really maybe didn't have language for what they knew they were experiencing, right? So they knew that they were not feeling connected to their children. But they really didn't have language for it and hadn't really identified. And now they're like, oh, that's what it is, right? And this is maybe some reasons why I do that. I really want to undo that, but I don't know where to start, right? Mm-hmm. What would you offer them?
Well, one, they've already started because they've, it's already like it clicked. The second piece, because you've already started, is start, and you gave me this little nugget, and I've always done it, but it always helps to hear it again. But start writing it down and writing your questions down. And once you write those questions down, like, why do I think this way or do this way? And start thinking, and it'll start getting you to think about like, and going down that trail of going back to the beginning. Third, be courageous enough to see if you do have the opportunity, if you have the wherewithal to actually have a conversation with your mother. Yeah, that's a heavy one. But again, if you can, right?
Yes, yeah.
Have the conversation with your mother. And I would say 3B or 3A, if you can have the conversation with your mother, then have a conversation with like an aunt.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right? Because your aunt grew up with your mother. And so oftentimes not, they grew up in the same household. So she can give you an indirect experience of what your mother experienced through her eyes. And then that may give you a little bit of a better view, of what your mother went through without necessarily like badgering her. And then she like closing down that, I don't know what that's called on the armor, but you know what I mean? Like just closing it down.
The hatches like that.
Right. Like just clamping up because she's not ready to go down that. She's not ready for her journey to start. So just because you are as a mother and as a daughter, or even as a sister, because you're ready and you started your journey does not mean that your mother has or your sister has or your aunt has. However, if you start the conversation and if you're told no, then take the no. Just take the no and then, continue the journey yourself, but come back to it. Don't just like, oh, it's no, but just come back to it. So I say those 3 things. You've started because you're cognizant of it, right? You're asking the question. 2, start writing it down. Start writing the questions down, and then start thinking back to see if you can answer those. And then 3, if you can't, and if you can, ask your mother. And if you can't ask your mother, 3A, ask your aunt.
Yeah. I love that because I think that whole experiential piece, right? Maybe your aunt didn't grow up in the same household, or maybe she did, or maybe she grew up down the street or upstairs, right on the second floor. You know what I mean? But that knowledge and that understanding of, well, here's what it was like, right? And here are some things that we journeyed through can still be very helpful, as you said, to starting, right? To starting. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Friends and family, this has been a really great time. I want to thank you all for joining us. Please continue to join us so you never miss an episode. We love you. We are so grateful for you. Thank you.
Thank you for watching Honoring the Armor podcast. We're releasing new episodes every other week. Let's keep the conversation going in the comments. Like and subscribe so you don't miss out.